Hey, good morning. Welcome to Garage Geek Fabulous 4. Hope everybody's having a great day. Oh, there's Hall. Yeah. Good morning. Oh, really? I got 4 likes. Let me turn off my music. I'm listening to the I don't know if you can see that. Coltrane sounds. Yeah. That's weird. It's not coming through. So I hope you're having a great morning. So as always, I'm going to introduce what we're doing. Essex County, the first of the Han Solo's adventures, Coltrane's Sound, and Company. So, in the chat, as always, I'm going to ask which one should I start with? Company, Coltrane Sound, Han Solo, or Essex County? Who's got an opinion out there? I should pick one. I guess I could start with the novel because usually if nobody's going to answer, usually that has the fewest participants. Yeah, we're of the same mind. Okay, Star Wars: The Han Solo Adventures by Brian Daley. The first one was called Han Solo at Star's End. So there's three in this volume: Han Solo at Star's End, Han Solo's Revenge, and Han Solo and the Lost Legacy. Now, this is actually retitled. So originally, it was called. I just saw it here. Hold on. Something about the Luke, yeah, from the adventures of Luke Skywalker, which is hilarious because Luke Skywalker is never even mentioned in the book that I read. So I don't know why they would be Luke Skywalker's adventures. So this is the first. It's actually the second book written in this from the Star Wars movies. The first one was Splinter in the Mind's Eye, which I read for this show. And so this is the second book. And in fact, these three novels were the only three novels, I think, after Splinter of the Mind's Eye that were written until I think the second movie. And then came the Lando Calrissian trilogy, which I actually have as well. Now, before I actually talk about the book, I want to talk about the book itself. Because as you can see, I didn't get a copy of the original novel. I bought this, from it's a mass market paperback from Amazon, right? So I bought this. I don't know, paid like $6 or $8 for it. But I'm very careful when I read. But I don't know if you could tell, but look at this huge right there. Can you see that big crease right down the spine? I could not avoid that. Oh wait, I have a comment. Mark, good morning. That's right. I am. I'm praying to the force. So like I could not avoid that, and it was making me so angry because as I read, I don't even want to do it more. Like that crease, that crack just happened, and I couldn't stop it. And so this normally when I read mass market paperbacks, that doesn't happen. So I'm wondering if this is a design flaw, but man, that kind of made me mad. So I got this. I I'm going to tell you, I'm definitely going to continue reading the stories in this book because number one, I think this Brian Daly guy is a good writer. Uh, Nerdery is my house of worship. Yep, fair enough. So, what did I think of this book? I loved it. I thought it was so much fun. It captured the characters of Han and Chewie, introduced a new group of characters. It was a fun adventure, and I thought this was a really good book. Like I was never bored reading this, and I'm so glad I read it. Now, is this going to be like, the most amazing Booker Prize winning book? No, this is all plot. It's just for fans of these movies. But if you're a fan of these movies, and even if you're not, like, I'm not the hugest Star Wars fan. I like Star Wars. Like, I'll watch the movies once every 8 years or something like that. Like, I don't know all the characters' names or anything like that. But having said that, I really enjoyed this movie, and I'm in this book, and I think this writer is really good. I will, since I'm just going over this, I will give you a brief synopsis of the plot. So Han Solo with Chewbacca lands on a. Oh, what's that? That was weird. Okay, I don't know if you heard that, but my computer just beeped at me. So Han Solo goes to this world to get repairs, and one of the leaders of the world was captured by the Authority, which I'm gonna assume is the what do we call the bad guys in Star Wars? I mean the whole thing. Oh, the Empire, right? Is that what they're called? So, anyways, in this book, they're called the Authority, and Han Solo meets with the daughter, and he reluctantly agrees to go and try to save the father who's been captured. So people are going missing throughout the galaxy, and the reason he does that is because Chewbacca is also captured and taken, and so that starts the whole story. They have to go to the planet, blah blah blah. Okay, I tried to do that in as little bit as possible, just so that you know what was going on in the book. I would highly recommend this. Fun read. All right. Anybody have? Yeah, the Empire. Like I don't even see. I don't even know all like the correct terminology. In fact, remember some? I was trying to figure out what is the dark side of the Force called. Oh, it's just called the dark side, right? So there's the light side and the dark side. So whatever. In fact, there's no Force at all in this book because Han doesn't really deal with the Force, I guess. All right. Well, we dispatched with that in 6 minutes. Each segment is supposed to take 15, but I guess we got rid of that one fast. So Han Solo Adventures recommended, highly recommended. Okay, next. Oh, let's see if we have any. Oh, we have another. Yeah, thank you, the Empire. Okay, so now you have to make another choice. We've got Company, and we've got Coltrane's Sound, and we've got Essex County. And it's funny because the one that takes me the longest, like I was finishing Han Solo Adventures this morning because I just get behind in everything, and that's the one I do the fastest. Coltrane. All right. Oh, let me go ahead and put the link. Right. I think that's a good thing to do. So, I forgot how to do this. Let me find the share button. Oh, invite. I'm so inept at this. All right, let me go ahead and. No, you have to. I remember you have to do it a certain way. There you go. Oh, there's the link if you want to join for the Coltrane. By the way, Sleepy told me that StreamYard might be eliminating its free usage in the future, it's like in the near future. I don't know if anybody else has heard that, but yeah. So live streaming might be going the way of the dinosaurs. Or else we're gonna have to start paying.
I missed that. What did you hear? Is it about a price increase on StreamYard or something?
No, that they're getting rid of the free option.
Oh, Jesus.
I know. So it's like everybody's going to have to pay if they want to use StreamYard. So I mean, it makes sense because they're probably losing a lot of money because so many people are using StreamYard. But imagine
Well,
that's really gonna take away from a
but
lot
you
of
know
people.
what? Like I would pay for a little bit better video quality. See you, Mark. I would pay $5 a month. They're just asking too much per month.
How much are they
Um,
asking?
I want to say it's like I think the literal bottom tier that you can pay for is like $20 a month.
Wow. I mean, that's cost. It's just prohibitive. No, like I wouldn't do that. Now
Yeah,
I've heard that YouTube allows you to live stream, but you can't have guests.
right. And that's the thing is like so much of this stuff that we do is, you
Community
want to
praise.
you want a round table, you want a community.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a shame.
All right. So
I
quit your
can't
belly
wait.
aching and go
I can't wait.
tell me about Coltrane Sound. So here's what I know from you
Yeah.
because you said it on your other live stream. You listened to it once or twice in your car,
Hmm.
and then you were giving your opinion. So let me hear what you think about Coltrane.
Okay. So I'll tell you where I started. Like I got in a fight with Hagen over this because he is a music fan and he likes jazz a lot, and I like certain jazz. Like it has to be the right kind for me. So like the one that I always think of is Miles Davis Bitches Brew is
Mm,
an album of noise. Like I hate it.
that's
And
not for me.
some jazz heads they love it, and to me that's like it's too much. It's just too much. So this was, I would say, somewhere in between, where it was very like artsy, but also you could, it was fine to listen to it. If I was going to go see this, I think what I said before, and I would agree, if I went to see this performed live, like in a club, it would be a blast, because that's what I'm there to concentrate on. To put it on in the background, like when I was driving to work, sometimes some of the time signatures, or just the franticness of it, was like a little much for me to have as just background music. So I think I liked it, but you had to focus on it. So that would be my review.
Okay, great. So I was of the same mind. I listened to this the first couple of times. I was like, oh, like I did not like it at all, and I wasn't clicking with it. And then as I listened, because I forced myself to listen to this almost daily for
Oh,
at least,
wow.
yeah, because I kind of want to like really be able to understand what if I'm going to talk about it. And
Sure.
of course, I didn't like. I'm not the studier. Like I didn't go and like look up every song and who's doing what. Like I get in trouble for that because I don't care about what musicians. I want to hear the sound, and that's what I focus on. Um, I love it. I love this. I got so into it. It clicked after a while. And I'm going to tell you what held me back. It's that track called Satellite. It's the last song on the original one. I
Okay.
still hate that song. It's one of those like kind of songs that
Yeah.
I do not like. But every other song on this is really beautiful. And it really clicked. You can listen to these because this is what I did. I
Mhm.
would listen to these while I was reading, and they did become these really nice, background accompaniments to my reading. But that satellite song, just always, ugh. And you know what? It's good that it's the last song. And I also looked up this morning that this was recorded in 1960
Oh,
and
wow.
released in 1964, and it was against his wishes. These were all tracks that were not used on any of his albums, but they made it like a contractual thing, and they forced him. He was I think leaving the record company, and they forced him to put out another album. So all of these tracks were like gathered by the studio and just put out against his will, which
That's
is
really
really interesting.
surprising, because like it doesn't feel like
Not
throwaway
at
tracks. It
all.
doesn't feel disjointed. It almost feels like it was crafted. Like they
Yeah,
go together really well, and I'm with you until that very last track. Everything kind of it works.
yeah.
So that's surprising to me that these are like unused B-side tracks.
Yeah, and in fact, and if you can see the back of mine, my CD actually has two bonus tracks on it, and
Okay.
so they're not listed here because this is like the original back of the album. I love these, by the way. I love these vinyl replica things. I just love these things to death. They come in these paper sleeves, and they're
Mhm.
just like shrunken down albums, and that's the original back. Now my eyes can't handle reading that, so I didn't read that. I need
No.
like a magnifying glass. But yeah, the track listing doesn't include the two. There's actually another package that goes with this. It goes around it, and it had like a booklet and explanation of the extra tracks. So the extra tracks was another body and soul one, and then
Yep.
another one called like 21/6 or 21/10 or something like that.
Yeah, I see. I listened to it through streaming service, and it had that, and it had, I think, a remaster of, you know what I mean? Like sometimes it does that where they have like the 2023 remaster of this. And I didn't necessarily listen to all of those because I noticed that they were repeating. But yeah, over a couple of days when you first put this out there, I threw this in as my listen to and from work for a couple of days. There were, there were a couple of times I found myself driving a little faster too because it's do 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 do.
Yeah. So I can't talk to musicianship or craft or anything like that. Too bad Hagen isn't here because he could jump in.
Well,
That would have been good.
unfortunately, I don't think he's going to. Poor Hagen is a victim of the hurricane. He's
Oh,
okay, but as far as I know, he was still without power yesterday. So,
oh
and
my
yeah,
goodness. Where does he live? Indiana? No, you live in
South.
Indiana.
I'm in Indiana. He's in South Carolina, which we actually got hit with it too on Friday. It hit us. We had a whole lot of bad winds. We lost power temporarily, but nothing like what they're dealing with down in the South. So yeah, it sounds like his area got hit pretty hard. He's okay from everything I've heard. It's just, they had said, we'll try to have power up by 9 a.m. the next day. And as of like last night, I've heard very little from him. Cell service is still interrupted. And, but he and his wife are okay. Just, they're living in the dark ages right now.
Wow, that's really interesting. I told you my sister, she went about almost a week, I think.
Yes.
She said without power.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it must be so strange because I remember I was in Africa. I lived in Africa in Malawi for a year, and power outages were a normal occurrence daily.
Right.
We would just lose them for hours, and then it would just suddenly come back on. Everybody was used to it. Like, you were used to being without power. But then you'd get these times when, it would go for a couple of days, and I would be like, okay, I'm ready for my power. Like, it was just, but it was strange because you would get used to the rhythms of not having light. So you'd have to go back to going to sleep when it got dark and getting up with light. And, but in the modern day, because of course we didn't have home internet then, right? When I was there, but we rely so much more on technology now. Like, when my internet goes out for even an hour, everyone is whining, complaining. It's like you're cut off from like something that's life-giving.
You really are. You are used to literally having the world in your hand, like that you can connect to anybody and anything. And it's, when that's out, it's bad. My son is 8, so he's grown up. No, he's 9. He's grown up in this era. And for him, it really is like, what the hell am I supposed to do when there's I can't watch anything. Everything's streaming, he's not used to physical.
Strange, right?
It is.
Like, I pull out, like, when this happens, if there's no internet, it's like, okay, time to pull out a DVD, right? Or a Blu-ray.
Right. Yeah.
But, a lot of people don't own those anymore.
Correct.
And they're just like, what do we do? And then it's very strange. Like, it's a totally different mindset from, even 20 years ago. Hi, Sleepy. What comment did he write?
Oh, no.
I lost my phone. Oh.
Have you found it? Have you told them to turn it off?
And that was bad because he was sending me pictures from the concert, and it was
what concert?
So cute. It was a K-pop. I'm assuming he took his. Well, I'm assuming he took his daughter to a K-pop concert. Like, maybe he was there enjoying the K-pop.
Hey, man. Oh, he found it. Hooray.
Oh, thank goodness. But he was sending me pictures of the groups on the stage and all their dance moves. It was the cutest pictures. I wonder if I don't even know if I can show you one, but the photos are really hilarious. Let me see. It's wasting time, but there was this like one group, and they're all going like this on the stage, and doing their dance moves, choreographed dances. So cute. But imagine, I used to live in Korea as well. I lived in Korea for 2 years, and I would go to tons of concerts because everything in Korea was relatively cheap compared to when I was in Japan. So going to concerts, going to movies, it was like nothing. So I would go all the time. I saw so many great concerts when I was in Korea. But I don't know. I never got into the K-pop groups.
I have completely avoided it. Like, I don't know. I'm aware of like BTS or whatever the initials are, but I as far as I know, I've never even heard a song. But that's okay. Everything doesn't have to be for everyone. I'm okay if I don't,
Yeah, even paying for parking required my phone. Yeah, we do so much these days with our phone. Like, so many places don't do cash anymore.
Mm-hmm.
They only do phones. So I don't know. I guess we should move on from Coltrane. What do you think about the art on that?
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. It's, impressionistic. To me, like, at first glance, it looks like it's made up of instruments. And then you get in and you see that it's paint. But like, I thought it was like, that it was like trombones and trumpets and things at first when I first looked at it, kind of like a collage. But I don't know. I thought I thought the art fit for the way the music felt.
What it looks like to me is there's like all these tiny pictures put on paint, and then someone took their fingers and went down.
Yeah.
Because those little things right there, those are definitely pictures. There's images in there. Right? Okay. Do you see those 3 squares?
Yeah.
And so there's images and paint mixed together. It's like really strange. and it's like his face is melting. I guess he played that satellite song one too many times. Anyways, this is the art really like drew me in. When I saw that this was being released on vinyl, I actually wanted to buy it just for that cover. Because I buy vinyls just because of the art. I don't really care about the
I know.
music.
I've done it too, man. I've done it
Hmm.
too.
All right, so we should go ahead and move on. So we've dispatched two of the four. So the next ones we have are Company and we have Essex County. Now,
Okay,
before we do that,
I'm
which
gonna.
one do
Oh,
you
go
think?
ahead. Go ahead. I think we should do
I
Essex
was gonna,
County next.
all right, I was just going to go ahead and paste the link in the chat for my other three viewers. So if anybody else wants to jump in, so we're doing Essex County. Is that what you said? Essex County.
Yeah, yeah. I want to save that movie for last because
All right.
that's something out there for me.
So Essex
Um,
County. Um, let's hear your thoughts
well,
first.
have you read any Jeff Lemire other than this?
I
Like,
do not believe I have, and he's
okay,
got so much that is
he does.
weird. And I've got like I need to read Sweet Tooth. I
Sweet
was
Tooth is
actually
excellent.
I was actually gonna pick what is that hammer?
Black Hammer.
Black Hammer for next month, but I decided against it. I picked something else. Um
So Black Hammer is, if you're a DC comic book fan, especially, like there's uh, a very heavy Silver Age DC influence to that book, but it is definitely its own thing. It also kind of like it feels like it ends, and then he decides he wants to do some more with the character. But it was really it was. I like a lot of what he does. I really like his art. Like it so grows on me, especially when it's a story that he's telling, like Sweet Tooth, or in this case, Essex County. I
mhm.
think the art really adds an atmosphere and a mood and a tone that if he just gave the script to somebody, I'm not sure it could translate the same way.
Mm.
Essex County to me, like I read this. It's been a while since I've read it, so I can't get into like super specifics. But I'm gonna like what I want to share with it is when I got to the end, like it felt like a series of smaller stories, and you kept going back and forth. But at the end, the way everything comes together was so well done and satisfying. Like I immediately told my wife, I said, "This is one of the best things I think I've read in 10 years. I want you to read it." So she got, because it was a library book, she was reading something else, she ended up getting it from the library about a month later, and when she read it in like 2 or 3 days, and she loved it as well. And okay,
Uh,
with that opinion, I do think that there are writers that I really like Jeff Lemire and Tom King, but they do tend to repeat themselves thematically so much that you don't feel like you're necessarily getting something new. But with this particular book, I just think it was it was a high watermark for his storytelling, even if it is the themes he's done before. And yeah,
yeah,
Sleepy's right. I picked up the first issue of that Arcana, and it was pretty good. It wasn't the best first issue ever, but I know he has a long-term plan for it, and because I'm a fan of what he does, especially his writing slash artwork when he's doing both. I'm going to stick with that one for a while. What did you think of it?
so this was my first time reading it, and I really liked it. I thought it was good up until the middle. I was really enjoying it, but I wouldn't. I was like, well, this isn't like the best thing I've ever read, because that's what people say. Like, wow,
Yeah,
this is one of the greatest comic, graphic
sure.
novels ever written. And so I was really enjoying it. And part of that is when you read something, knowing that everyone says this is the greatest ever, you really got those high
Yes.
expectations, right? And
Yep.
so that's a bad thing to do. But I was really enjoying it. And then I got to like the second half and I was like, oh, this is getting even better and better. And so I think like you get more of the kind of backstories and linkages. And even though the beginning is really good, uh, you just get more of the story and it puts a lot more into context. Right.
Yeah.
And so it was really growing on me. And you get more of the emotional resonance, right, by the end.
And the focus of the beginning being on the boy who dresses up like a superhero, like felt a lot longer than what happens from the middle to the end. Like I felt like there was just a lot of focus on him as a character, and I thought that was the story I was reading. You look at the cover, right? And the cover has those kids, including the kid dressed up as the superhero, and I kind of got like, am I getting Stranger Things? Am I getting,
Mm,
a Goonies type coming of age story? And it's not at all.
yeah,
It's, that cover shows these roots underground, and all of these characters live in Essex County in Canada at different time periods, but the roots are showing how they are literally all completely tied to that place and how they're
yeah,
tied together. And
family tree.
at the end, I think he did such a good job. Like there were I loved the brothers, the two brothers that played hockey. Their
Yeah,
story was really good. The old man story was so sad. It was
there's a family
just,
tree in there.
yes, and then, you get your family trees where you start seeing how all these characters fit together, and there is a disjointedness, like, if you're not completely paying attention, you're not sure when you go
Yeah,
to a new character story, like, the timeline is a little confusing, but, and you are right by hearing, "Oh, this is one of the best things I've ever read," because what made it one of the best things for me was how surprised I was. I thought I was reading a very simple story. I didn't expect all of these ties to happen. So, because I was surprised by that, it made it really good for me. If you go in thinking, I'm going to read this thing that everyone says is so great, I could totally see that it doesn't have quite the same payoff.
yeah. And I want to talk a little bit about the art because you definitely mentioned that, and of course we would mention it. I was like, there was a couple of double page spreads in here that really kind of like, ooh, like he took more
Hmm.
time on those. Most of these are simple like line drawings that are
Yep.
really not that difficult to do, especially the faces. Like his noses look like U's
Yeah.
in many instances. But then when you come to those double page spreads and there's like a lot of detail in them and it just kind of opens up the story, and right now I can't find one, unfortunately, but yeah, some of those are just really really good. And I think I mentioned to you, I really really wish that this thing were done with watercolors.
Yeah.
I really think that that would just make this beautiful. Like the art, I don't mind the black and white art, but I really like color.
That new
And
book that Sleepy was talking about, Arcana, almost does, it's not watercolor, but it's a softer coloring to his artwork that I think works really well.
yeah,
I
all
don't
yours.
know I don't know where this falls in his career either. Like, I don't know how old the book is. Um, if this was done like when he was first starting out, maybe color art wasn't really an option for him. I don't know.
Yeah.
I also want to know, like, because he has this distinct clunky style, I remember looking at like Mike Mignolia's art on Hellboy, and it kind of has that same like jagged, stylized look. But you can find pictures that Mike Mignola's drawn that are so incredibly detailed and amazing. Like, that style is a choice. So I wonder what Jeff Lemire is capable of if he really wants to do like a different style or realism or something, because he does have a very distinct this chunky cartoony. I almost think it's a
Line.
little bit Jack Kirby inspired, the way that it's so quick. Like you said, noses are used. Kirby had a very flat square style to get his work done, and sometimes I see that in the faces.
You know what? He reminds me more of Joe Kubert or Kubert, or however you
Yeah.
pronounce it, because Joe Kubert just has those really thin lines, and I do not
Hmm.
normally like his art. Like there are some times when it really works, but for the most part, Kubert art just looks too like thin lines for me. And
Yeah.
this seems to be that way, but he's got a lot of areas where there's all this darkness. And so
Yes.
there's a great contrast with like the thin lines and then the darkness in the background. But yeah, I really, really would have liked some color in this. I think it would have just enhanced this. But yeah, I mean, because look at the cover, you get a little bit of color there, and it just
Yeah.
really enhances the image with the cape, and
Right.
it gives a focal point, and then you go out from there. Um, so the I wanted to talk a little bit about the characters because I was struggling a bit with the time and like, oh, how are these two related? And there were a lot of pairs. Like there were
Yes.
the brothers that were fighters, and then there
Right.
were brothers who were hockey players, and then
Yep.
so I was getting confused because of all these male pairs and like where they would fit in history, and then there were, and then of course you get some of them when they're young, and then when they're older, and so I did this in a very quick read through, and then at the very end of the book, he gives you a family tree, right? They don't
Yes.
give it at the beginning. At the beginning, they do give a tree, but it's not a family tree. It's chapter headings,
Hmm.
which was really interesting. Where is that? Oh, this. So I was expecting it to be a family tree, but no, it's just the chapter or the divisions of the the story, right? The different
So
parts.
like I said, it's been like 3 or 4 months since I've read this, but the brothers who were fighters, was that part of the main story, or was that there was like some afterward stuff
There,
after,
let
and
me
I
see.
I can't remember exactly, but you're right. There's a lot of pairs in this. So you got the little boy and the superhero with his uncle who's taking
Hmm.
care of him after his mother is sick. The two brothers who play hockey, um, and then the nurse who goes out to take care of the old man. And
Yeah, she
that's
was my favorite. That was my favorite section. Her was.
it.
And go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say there was just like there were moments in all three of those stories that were so just sad. It was just so sad. The little boy is in his room with his comic books, and the uncle is watching hockey, and neither of them know how to communicate how sad and alone both of them feel. Like
Yeah,
if they could just talk to each other, they would have somebody to lean on, but they're both literally in the same place trying to do it all by themselves, trying to
and you
navigate.
and you missed. And there's another scene where the uncle is like, "Hey," because he knows the kid likes hockey. "Hey, you
Yeah.
want to watch a hockey game with me?" And he's like, "Nah, I feel like going to my room," and he just turns on the hockey game in his room.
Yeah. Right.
And yeah, and they're both so like disconnected, and it's funny because the uncle is able to communicate with the nurse and say, "Oh, I
Mhm.
don't know how to connect with him. I'm doing this, this, and this." And I'm like, if you can, articulate that to the nurse, why can't you articulate that to the child? Like, and he does later. Like he goes and sits in his room and
Yeah.
hands him a box of photos. But here's the thing with me, like for example, the uncle in that story, I think he's another character when he was younger in another story. And right, so for me, I read this so fast, I didn't make all the connections, I think,
Yeah.
of who every single character was at what time. So I definitely need to reread this with an idea of connecting all the characters through time.
And I think that's like kind of part of the intention of this is, for a reader to be hopefully, I mean, I just didn't get to make it happen, but to want to go and reread it with a different point of view now that you've gotten to the end and seen that you're not reading little vignettes, you're not reading little stories that all take place in the same place. You're reading all these stories that are completely connected, and there's a through line
Hmm.
through the time and the place that it takes that the story is happening, the setting. So yeah, I wanted to read it again. I couldn't make it happen before here.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I'm
that's
reading so many things simultaneously, right? I know you're in
exactly.
that
And
boat too.
there is one connection through everything, and that is the crow right there.
Yes.
That crow is in every story. He seems to be like a godlike figure that threads them together and comes to them in times of trouble. Oh God, I'm sounding like a
Or or is it, I mean,
someone from the
I
song.
think my first thought was like it was a raven. Like ravens have a certain mythological significance to how, like you said, in
Yeah,
certain time period, that a raven has a certain
I mean,
symbolism to it.
look at it though. I mean, that it doesn't look like a raven to me. Like, look at that. It just
I
looks like a
Yeah,
blackbird.
it
Maybe not even a crow.
it
And
looks like it has a little bit of a Heckle and Jekyll look to it as
yes,
well.
that bird is not well drawn in most scenes. But the one interesting scene is when the nurse goes to visit her husband at the graveyard, and the bird is on the gravestone, and she makes it leave. And we're at that point we're realizing, hey, this bird is kind of a protector. And I
Yeah.
was wondering if the bird was even one of the characters reincarnated that remember
Yeah,
there's this guy who burns to death, and he has a crow,
that is literally what I was gonna say. The mountain man
and yeah, and
who
so it
rescues
was
all of
like,
the kids and is in love with the nun.
yeah,
Like, there's
impregnates her.
another pair we
Yeah,
didn't mention.
yeah, and impregnates her, and she goes on
Yeah,
and has a baby, who is, I think, important to the story if
it's
you look at the timeline.
I think it's either the patriarch or the matriarch of the family we're reading about. Like,
Yeah,
it's a very yeah, it that's the beginning of that family tree. Like, that's the point where I in the book when spoiler. I mean, I'm trying not to spoil here, but when that point happened, that I was just like, I stopped for a minute and really had to think, okay, who's this? Who's this? When is this? Because holy cow, this is where this nun, these orphans, and this freaking mountain man, that's where it all starts.
yeah,
And their struggle, right? Like, their struggle just to survive in a harsh place continues, even though we're in modern times with modern conveniences. All of those characters are struggling with something.
hmm yeah. So I guess we're both going to say that this is a definite must read. This is a
I,
great, great graphic novel.
I highly
Even with
recommend
the
it.
hype, it deserves it. It's really
Yeah.
good. I would like some color in there. So Jeff,
And
redo this with
I'm
the left
okay. I
edition.
love black and white art. I'm so okay with it. But
I
yeah,
am too usually, but
color wouldn't hurt.
if it's going to be simplistic lines like this, I would like color. Like that's just my opinion. There's a lot of black and white art. I don't mind if it's detailed, but this one
Yeah,
is the
sure.
art isn't that detailed, and so I
Yeah.
don't know. Sorry, that's a small quibble, but I really would like, and I think watercolors would really make this type of story pop. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we've done three, and so now we're up to company. So let me go ahead and
Yay.
with the
I'm so
link in
excited to
case
talk about this.
anybody else jumping in. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about the documentary Company by D.A. Pennebaker, which is basically a documentary filmmaker went into the session where they were doing the live original cast album for the musical Company, and traditionally that's done the first Sunday when the show opens, and they have to do it all in one day just to get it done because studio time is expensive. And so this is the filmmaker was very lucky because he happened on something quite interesting and incredible when he was doing this documentary. Okay,
The,
take it away.
it was so. I mean, I can talk. It's only 50 minutes long.
Yeah, it's
The
very
the
short.
doc the documentary is extremely short, and I feel like I could talk about this for a while because it was such an interesting, like you said, my first thought was, oh, this was over a couple of sessions, but then I was looking it up while I was watching and could not believe this was all it. Technically it wasn't one day because
Grueling
at the very
14
end,
hours, I think.
but oh my gosh, right? And so another part of that to keep in mind is these people are performing this musical. Like, they're doing this on stage Monday through Saturday or whatever it is, and on the Sunday they have off. Now they have to go in and do this marathon recording session. The archaicness of the equipment they were recording with was so wild. Like, at one point the guy had this bank of I don't know what they are, but different recording things, and he's putting patch cords in. It looked like an old style telephone where you would call, and be like, yeah, Murray Hill 5, please. Okay, 1 second and I'll connect you. And he's doing that with instrumentation. I told you, I sent you a text. I was like, I think I need to get a turtleneck sweater because everyone's wearing
And cigarette.
they're all smoking.
So many people smoking everywhere throughout
It
this entire thing. I was like,
it was
and they're singing, right? They're performing with their
right.
voices.
Oh, I couldn't believe they were, it's like Elaine Stritch. It's like, your voice is taxed. I'm like, it's because she smoked 3 packs of cigarettes today.
Yeah.
It was really interesting. I'll start there. I want to hear like some of your thoughts too, because you are definitely more into musicals and especially Stephen Sondheim.
Yes, I really.
And I also want to say hi to Richard. Hi, Richard.
Really,
Richard and I are going to be on the same channel tonight. We're going to be on Side Quest Comics at 9.
Oh, awesome. So I'm gonna have to jump in there. So we're talking about this original cast album Company, which is kind of funny because it's a movie, but on here it says original cast album Company, right? And so this Criterion has so many special features, which I want to talk about later. But the thing about this is it's not like a traditional documentary, right? With like a story and like a
No,
point. It's just like
it's
there's somebody in there just filming people as they're going through it. And so at the beginning you're kind of disjointed, right? Because you really have to set yourself up for the type of experience that you're watching, right? Because it's just basically, I'm going to film this, I'm going to film this, I'm going to film this, I'm going to film this. And usually there's some intent. Now, we do get this amazing section at the end with
oh,
Stritch's break meltdown.
that's so
And
good.
they stress over and over again how the filmmaker was walking out, and that started, and he turned right around realizing something interesting, but he was actually leaving. He was leaving when everyone else left, and he turned right around, and thank God, because that's what made this thing gold, that final piece.
Yeah.
Now the I found it fascinating watching, everybody doing their takes and stopping and being okay, you need to do a B instead of an F flat. Like you've been singing in this show for months, and I've noticed that over time, like Sondheim comes up to her and he's like, over time you've been making it a B flat, but I need an F, and she's like,
Well, and she's mispronouncing a word and it's
oh, and
driving him
he goes,
crazy. He's like, it's Bibby Bubby, Bubby. And she's like, yeah, Bibby Baby. No. And he's just like, he's trying so hard to not like be aggressive and frustrated, but he is. You can clearly see it on his face. Uh,
and the problem is, like, he's been there for how many ever hours as well, and he's got
right.
this very exacting personality, and of course that's going to grate on the artist. Like, they've been doing this show, making it their own, right? At a certain point, the artist has to release it and let the musicians take over. Like, you've given
And,
them months and months of study. Let them say it Booby instead of
and
Bobby, and
the
don't
writer,
fixate
the
on that.
writer even said that, like in his little, like, it wasn't, you're right. It's not tradition. It's not really an interview. I think that, the cameraman's just like, hey, talk to me for a little bit. And the director, I'm sorry, the writer of the show said, I put these things on paper, but it wasn't until they started talking and things changed that the characters came to life. Like he was willing to let them have a little bit of freedom with things, but but Sondheim is like, you are
You
going
know,
to sing
I
that.
need this to be whatever. Yeah, and he
You're
gets right
singing
up
what I
front, and
want.
it's quite funny, right? Because and you can see everybody because it was a 14-hour session,
Oh,
and by the end they were just all just exhausted, and they were just, yeah, it just wasn't coming together. And yeah, like there's this one scene where they're all sitting there singing, and there's this guy, like, he's got a cigarette. It just drives me nuts. They're all singing together in unison, and he's got a cigarette, and he's just standing there with the cigarette and like the smoke. It's
and
hilarious.
he's singing though. He
Yeah,
was,
he's one of the
yeah,
singers,
yeah.
and he's
He's
just
one
sitting
of
there
the
with his
singers
cigarette.
with a cigarette going. It
Yeah.
was crazy to watch that.
Oh
Um,
Lord.
I want to say that when I first started watching this,
Mm.
so probably the first 10 to 15 minutes, I just thought, what is David making me watch? Because this music is horrible. I
Yeah,
hated
great.
like the 60s, 70s sound of it. Like it was really like it took it a little bit to grow in, for me to enjoy the music itself. But what really got me into it was the and you can speak more to this. I think the lyrics in this are so freaking brilliant. And I've only heard what's in the musical. There's probably more, but
Yeah.
yeah, the lyrics, the story that he's telling within those lyrics is so well done. And then the music just kind of grows on you. Like you
Mm.
can appreciate it for the time period it came from.
Yeah, so the this was one of those weird musicals that didn't really have a plot. It was basically all, so the original the original guy wrote this because his therapist recommended that he write some stuff down, and so they were going to make a movie out of it. But then the guy that they sent it to, what do you call the producer? He's like,
Mhm.
this would make a better musical. And so they got everyone together and they like trimmed it down and they put it into this. But it's not like a linear story. It's the story of like three people in different time periods of the relationship. And so in a way, it was kind of like very different for a musical. And there was this really famous comment. I think it was Lerner or Lowe. I think it was Lowe, and he was up against Sondheim, and he got up at the
The
Tony
Tonys?
Awards, and he was like, at least they're still, awarding songs that are singable or hummable. And he said that in front of the whole audience, and it was a direct Sondheim. And of course, Lowe did his greatness for musicals, but he's definitely of a time period of the past. And
Right.
I mean, he's amazing too, but Sondheim is a giant in his creativity, and he wasn't really recognized as such. And a comment like that is just so grating. But imagine sitting in the audience and having to listen to that in front of all of your peers, right? It's such a
Right.
disrespectful thing for another artist to say about another artist, even if you don't like their work,
Well,
right?
I'm sorry. I don't think that's because he doesn't like the work. I think it's because somebody says something like that because they know that they're stuck in a place and they're not moving forward. He's doing the same thing over and over again, whereas Sondheim, it is definitely not traditional, and it is definitely something that is not hummable, but it was incredible and creative. And
Yeah.
I want to see like the actual whole performance. I saw that there was a modernish revival of it with Stephen Colbert and Neil Patrick Harris and a couple other people that they did a performance of this.
Uh,
Um, I'd be interested to see like any version of it because I thought, like I said, I thought the stories that they were telling in the songs that I at least got to see in this documentary were interesting.
yeah, definitely. Did you I really like there's this one woman who I don't know, she's so famous. Like I know her from something else that
Okay.
she did later. But she has to sing this song where she's like and
Yes, that
I
was
won't
an
get married today.
right.
Like she has to like it's like almost a rap.
It
And
was
she
awesome.
yeah, and she messes it up once and they come over and
Mhm.
scold her. And like she's so embarrassed because she's got to get this right and everybody is there just staring at her perform this. And it's a really difficult piece of music to get through, right? And
It
she's got to sit there
it it's so difficult musically, like, it doesn't even it's not it's a weird whatever, but the speed of that, memorizing all of those words, not mixing them up, like, I was really mesmerized by what she was able to do with that, and that was
Mhm.
one of my favorite songs in the whole thing, like,
Yeah.
just because of it felt like anxiety that she was having about not getting married today, like,
Yes.
it gave you anxiety to listen to it. It
Yeah.
was
Her
so
mindset.
good.
Yeah.
I was real and I'm with you, like, I don't know who she is or what I know her from. I kept thinking she looked like the girl from Airplane, the girlfriend from the Julie Haggerty, but
Oh yeah.
it's not Julie
No, not
Haggerty.
her. Yeah.
But yeah, that was so that song in particular was so good. There was one that I think is like a lead guy, and
Mhm.
he knocks something out of the park too. Like he has this big voice.
Yeah. It's
Another
the main song. It's the main
okay,
like it ends the show. And in fact, there's a backstory to this because I guess he was a real diva and he was right. And they even showed him, oh, my voice isn't going to hold out. And so Elaine Stritch famously says, you know what? You go ahead and record your song early in the day and I'll just do mine at the end because his was the last song and they were going to record it last.
okay,
And he nails it. Like it's like
oh
one of the
yeah,
best performances of this video.
yeah.
And even when he stops, he kind of looks around like, did I just do that? Like he does it so well. And he didn't stay with the show. They actually released him. He was a movie star. He'd been in some movies, and he was going through a lot of difficulty. He didn't want to be in New York. He was going through a messy relationship, and the director of the show said, "Listen, uh, go ahead, just give us opening night, and then we'll release you from the show. And he was grateful for that, and he actually wrote him later in his life saying how much he appreciated that he did
Wow.
that. And they got someone else, to do the role. But that leads to the end where we get
Yep.
the Stritch breakdown. Now, because I'm getting all this information from all the commentaries, right? Because
Yeah, I love this because I didn't have that. I just watched it
Yeah.
on HBO.
And I'm going to tell you, there's one special feature on here that is so good, and if you could track it down, you've got to watch it. And that's a documentary now. And I don't know if you know that show, but they basically parody famous documentaries. And
Okay.
it's like, a comedy troupe. Like, oh, what's the guy from SNL who did the Portlandia show?
Oh,
Like he does.
Fred Armiston.
Yes, he's in a lot of them. And so
okay.
they parody this, and it's hilarious. And then they all get together for an interview later. It's during COVID, and they talk about it, like what inspired them, and they really break this down, and they put all the funny things in there. And the one guy was like, "Why does that guy have a cigarette?" And I was laughing because he's like, he never puffs it during the song. He's just standing there with the cigarette. It's pretty hilarious, and they reenact some of the scenes, like when Sondheim comes over, and
Yeah.
it's really funny. So and
Okay.
it's a 30-minute, and it's called Co-op instead of Company. And
Okay.
so documentary now. If you can watch it, it's pretty funny.
I'll
And
find
in
it.
fact, that whole show is really good.
I'll
If you don't
find it.
know
That
about
sounds
that.
great.
So anyways, let's get to the Elaine Stritch. So they were saying it wasn't because of cigarettes, but Elaine is a famous drinker. And
Yeah.
throughout the night, she was having more and more drinks. And by the end, well, first of all, it was the end, it was getting to be like 12 hours.
Right.
And they're all exhausted anyway. And she's got to do like one of these, standing ovation type numbers. And she just couldn't do it. And like everybody's getting so frustrated because she's singing, and every take she's getting worse and worse. And they can just hear it. And they're trying not to bitch at her, but they are. And she's feeling like so frustrated with herself. She starts listening to herself and screaming at herself and swearing at herself. And then I can do this. I could do this. And she'd go out and it would be worse. And everyone's just backstage going, oh my God, oh my God. And it's and like they have this day to get it right. And they know it's not going to happen. They're going to have to put out this really inferior product at the end of the day. And it's like, and everybody's on edge because she just can't do it. It's like and that's the documentary gold I was telling you about, because he was getting ready to leave.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was starting her breakdown. He was like, oh wait, and he came back in and he got it all on film. It's pretty awesome, actually.
It was amazing. And here I'm gonna give you like a little perspective for me. Like I didn't know Elaine Stritch for anything. I started going down a rabbit hole. She is like such a character, but in her takes that weren't good, I didn't think it was honestly that bad, because like again, lyrically it fit what the story she was telling through those lyrics. Even though it was rough, like it kind of made I'll drink to that, was the whole thing.
They do some lunch, yeah.
So then what happens is that because you said they can't get it, so they tell her she's gonna come back on like Monday or whatever day it was that they said
they're gonna record. So what they did was they recorded the orchestra because they couldn't pay them again, and she just came in and laid down the overdub track, which is something that has actually become commonplace now.
And she nailed it at a level that like that was when she sang, when they give you that last take. That's when I realized like, oh, that's why everybody's putting their heads down. Like that's what it was supposed to sound like, because she really hit some notes that were so rough, right? Like, but at the same time hitting I don't know how to explain it. Like there was this weird dichotomy in her voice that was like raspy with cigarettes and vodka, but at the same time, like perfectly controlled and beautiful. It was so amazing that they gave her that last take or that extra day to get it right, because oh my God, that was so good.
Yes. And but what I was amazed at, as I already mentioned, as you're watching her go through this struggle, she's singing her heart out and she knows
Yes.
it's not good. And her emotion, like she is acting out the scene every single time. And
Mhm.
her face is so wonderful to watch because she's such a good actress for that role, but her voice just wasn't matching the emotion. And so you could watch her performances and think, wow, but nobody on the record is going to see that, right? They're only going to hear her voice.
And she was that I'm so glad you said that. She was the only one. There was one other girl when she was singing a duet, that she was doing a lot of acting and emoting as well, but everybody else was just singing. And I felt like Elaine Stritch was the only one really getting into the headspace of where she was supposed to be to do
Yeah.
her singing. And I noticed it like even in the group, like when they were when they had the whole cast up there and she was just doing backup, they would show her and she's making these facial expressions and doing these little winks and things because that's who her character was. Everybody else is just standing there with their cigarette and singing, to get through it.
I'm
I
going to
just
tell you something, though. The commentary, like, they're pretty brutal with Elaine because they were,
oh,
a lot
don't
of them
tell me
were
that.
friends. They were like, Elaine was such a diva. She knew the cameras were there. And so at one point, she's like the only one that looks at the camera. And it seems like, she's playing it up for the cameras, which is fine because we get this, emotional, range from her in the roles. But most of the people, like, they were talking about how the guy had the camera on his shoulder and he
Okay.
would walk around and people would just forget about it. And it would become natural to have him
Yeah.
weaving in and out just like another person in the studio, right? It wasn't as intrusive, but she seemed to be playing it up for the camera throughout the whole thing. And which is fine because some people do things like that. But yeah, they were saying how much of a diva she was. And then another thing is that when they asked for permission, the documentary now people, when they asked for permission to do that, the one stipulation was do not make Elaine Stritch look like a clown. She
Yeah.
is a professional and she's a wonderful performer and just don't do that. And they respected that. And in the documentary they didn't. But yeah, but this whole documentary wouldn't have gone anywhere without that ending.
It was I mean, I was invested, I really was, easily within 15 to 20 minutes of, just seeing because I have been on jobs before that are similar. You've got 1 day and you're gonna make it a long day, and when you just think of how much that studio and all of those technicians cost and all of the musicians and having everybody literally in one place
And they
like that.
pad the and they pad out the like that's another um critique that they make is because whenever they do that those Sunday cast recordings, they bring in more musicians than they actually have. So the actual
Mhm.
cast recordings sound better than than
Okay.
the theater because they do hire more strings that they couldn't pay for on a nightly basis and they like
Yeah.
really pad out the orchestra. So yeah, that's something else to keep in mind.
Well, I thought it was I mean, it's not my thing, like, it's not anything I'd ever seen before or heard of really, and like with anything, I love learning about something new. This was so unique, so I love that you chose this because I freaking had a blast, man. I loved watching this.
So maybe you can become more interested in Sondheim. I've
Maybe.
always wanted to do like a song by song critique of Assassins, and I think that is brilliant. He takes every assassin who went after a president and he brings them to life, and they all have to come together to urge sorry, the guy who went after Kennedy. Do you remember
Uh,
the assassin? Anyways, that assassin, not John Wilkes
Not
Booth.
John Wilkes Booth.
That was
They all
like
have 3 names, though. I don't know why
her hand. No, that was another one. Like they're
No, that
all
was
in his
another
plate, but they all come together and they appear to him and they urge him on and they're telling him if you don't do this, no one remembers us. And they egg him on to commit that crime.
Is this a
It is
musical?
yes,
I've
and they
never heard of this.
oh, it's amazing, and they take the actual, like, things that the assassin said, and he weaves songs around them. It's
Wow.
so great, and I've been wanting to do that one forever because I'm just, a Sondheim nerd.
Yeah. I'm writing that one down too, man.
That's
That sounds
fascinating.
amazing.
Yeah. So, I guess we're at the point where, unless you have any final thoughts, I'm going
No,
to talk
I just,
about what I'm reading next.
again, I just want to say like that is not my thing, and that's why I think it's important, like that you don't just immediately say, "Oh, I'm not into musicals." I don't think that's, I'm not going to enjoy that. I'm not into musicals, and I freaking loved this documentary. I thought it was a really interesting, like you said, slice of life, a day
Yeah,
in the life.
I'm kind of that way. Like, if somebody says, you know what, I love this, and this is like great, like I'm going to listen to it. That's what happened, like putting me down a rabbit hole with all the like the metalheads, like Pie Faces here. Like, I started listening to all this death metal and all this other stuff because they were like, you should try this out, and I actually started to really enjoy them. And there was this one at the gates, like, man, the first time I listened to it, it was like nails on a chalkboard. It was horrible. And I just listened to it. And because the requirement was I had to listen to it twice a day over a week. That's the requirement. By the end, I started to enjoy it. Something clicked. And it was
Yeah.
the same with that Coltrane thing. Like, you kind of get used to the rhythms and you're putting yourself into something that you're not really used to. And but there's so many people who love and appreciate these things that you got to like get into that mindset. Like, why do they like this so much?
Yeah. Yeah.
And things can click. So I'm going to go ahead, and I had this grand scheme that I was going to pick everything Halloween related. And I was thinking da da da. And then what did I do? I was like 6 minutes and this was starting. I was like, oh crap, I haven't even gotten what we're doing next month. So I just ran around my room grabbing some stuff. So I'm probably going to change these things. So there's this. Yeah. Like, my husband famously said, this is music, alas, because my husband says, "Oh, is that the raccoon music?" Because he would pick this one heavy like death metal song and he would put it in the attic to make all the raccoons run out because we had a raccoon infestation.
That's
And that's
funny.
what that sounded like to me. So I don't know why when I click on these things, they're like popping in and out. Oh, good. Thank you, Pie Face. I'm always down to listen to something new and different. I am. And so the book that we're going to read, this one is for sure, because I know this is readily available. So we're going to pick H.P. Lovecraft, which is a group of short stories at the Mountains of Madness. But you could read any H.P. Lovecraft that you have lying around. So there we go. So that's definitely a Halloween book. I want to pick, I might change this though. I'm a big fan of these late night tales series, and what they do is they ask some famous electronic musician or group to come together with like a playlist that they would listen to like after the clubs get out, and they put together like a late night, and it's basically a compilation disc of things that these people listened to. And I always find these things fascinating. And what they normally do, if you can get it, they have a mixtape where they weave all the songs together like electronic musicians do. So I've got
Cool.
three. I've got one by Agnes Obel. I mean, I've got a lot of these, but I just grabbed them. One by Floating Points and one by Bad Bad Not Good. So I'm going to pick one of these, I think, and because I think it would be a good introduction to this type of music. And there's so many companies that put out this type of music where they get famous musicians to come up with mixtapes like that. The movie. Oh wait, let's talk about I picked this Odyssey Cycle 1 from Image. So this is by Matt Fraction. And the only thing I think I've read by Matt Fraction is the Hawkeye, which I really love.
I did. Yeah, I like that too.
So this is Image, and I'm sure this is readily available. So and the art looks really interesting inside. So and even that cover. So yeah, I was going to pick that for the graphic novel because I think it's readily available, either in trades or in that deluxe edition. And then I'm not sure of the movie. I was thinking of picking some like a Universal horror,
Yeah.
or like a classic Psycho, or a more modern, because I love doing the Criterion because they have so many of these. So the extra features. So like Pan's Labyrinth or Silence of Lambs. This is like one of my favorite movies. So I'm just not sure. Maybe I'll do a poll and ask people.
That's a good idea.
Which one would you prefer? Would it
Um,
Gremlins, Hands,
I don't,
Psycho,
I have not
Drive?
watched a Universal movie in so long. I'd be very tempted to pick that, but I think you should do a poll.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I periodically watch Universal movies. I love them. I love the way they take you back and put you in a space. So now they're going on because they have these. They like to do penis jokes.
who doesn't?
They're doing that in the comments. So I don't know what's going on. I kind of like ignore that.
Hey,
Yeah, like
can I share something with you real quick?
go ahead, please.
So on October 30th, I'm sort of stealing your idea of the Fab Four. I've always
Steal it.
wanted to do a graphic novel book club. So I've got my first one set up. So on my channel on October 30th, I'm going to announce this next week, but you're getting the preview announcement, David. So we're going to read My Favorite Thing is Monsters, which is
Oh,
an incredible book. This is volume one. I'm only doing volume one. I've invited two people who I've tried to get on my channel for a while to come and discuss this with me. So that's going to be really cool. This is a thick book, you know. I mean, it's and the art in this is just it. Have you read this?
I think, but I
Okay,
can't
you should check
remember.
it out. It's all
Yeah, I
like
remember
it's
it being a journal, like a journal.
yeah. And
And
there's
that's
a,
that's the perfect idea of what I was saying. The black and white is fine because of all that detail in the art.
and she has a lot of color in there too. And so like the girl, the author, what is her name? Emily Ferris. You know, she has a reason that she created this story. The story itself has a lot of layers. It's going to be fun. I'm rereading it this month. And I just
I'll
yeah.
order that. I'll go ahead and order
I
that.
got mine from the library, and somebody else said that too. Everything's free from your local library. Like, yeah, that's probably how I'll try to get Odyssey too.
It's true. Uh,
I I try not to spend too much if I can avoid it because I already spend too much.
okay, so A Pilgrim is telling us that these late night tales and late night tales after dark series are free. Free gal. I don't know what that is. Freegal or free gal?
Free goal.
Free
I don't
gal.
know if it's a. I feel like it's like a library.
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel my library has a link to it on their
Okay.
website.
And
Like
so
it's a
Franz
digital
Ferdinand
service.
has a lot of them are really fun and interesting listens. I really like the series a lot, and it's helped me branch out into a lot of others that other companies that make similar types of products. Um,
Cool.
yeah, so thank you for that. And I wish I got it. Okay, so they're doing their penis things again. Okay, we're talking about wet wangs and I don't know, Free Willy.
Hey,
I don't know.
if you're lucky.
Yeah. So again, I want to thank you because you like saved my show. Like,
Hey
and then
man,
jumping
I'll be
on.
here every month. I love this. This is
I mean,
like
I don't mind doing it by myself because I can ramble, but man, it's nice to have someone to bounce.
it is.
Ideas
It
off
is.
of.
I have a
So thank you
blast,
so
man.
much for
Every
joining.
chance to hang out, I'll take it.
Yeah, and I hope to see everybody next month. You want to stick around?
Yeah, I want to show you. I got a couple things I want to show you. So yes, I'm definitely sticking around for a minute. Good to see everybody. See you tonight, Richard.